What is going on, everybody? I'm back today to talk about an A24 film that was released last year that got limited to small theatrical releasing and was widely released on VOD pretty quickly after it was announced. And as soon as I heard what this film was about and the way that it was shot and the experimental style that it used, I was really looking forward to watching this movie. And the reviews for this thing were all over the place. And I feel like anytime someone makes a film in a very highly experimental style with non-linear narrative, you're always gonna have reviews that are all over the place. But I wanted to jump in and watch this movie, and I was really excited to see it. And the film I'm going to be discussing with you today is All Dirt Road's Taste of Salt. All Dirt Road's Taste of Salt is directed by Raven Jackson. Tender caresses and enveloping embraces are portals into the life of Mac, a black woman in Mississippi, winding through the anticipation, love, and heartbreak she experiences from childhood to adulthood. The expressionist journey is an ode to connection with loved ones and with place. So I was very excited to watch this movie after reading the plot description and realizing it was shot in an experimental style and what the subject matter was. And I think this movie is incredibly beautiful. For me personally, not everything about the movie works as strongly as I think that it sets out to, but I still think the experience of this film is well worth having. I think it's an incredible directorial debut, and I'm really excited to tell you about it today. So as the plot description states, the film centers around our lead character, Mac, and we see her played by multiple different actresses through multiple different periods in her life. It starts out when she's very young, we jump to when she's in probably her 20s, back to her teenage years, and the film is jumping from place to place, and we get scenes with her mother and father, we get scenes with her best friend, we get scenes with romantic interests, and we're jumping to different periods in her life, and it's a very non-linear narrative. And the entire goal of the film is to show this person's particular life, where they live, and how important their interactions with other people are to their day-to-day lives, and how we are all connected in this world. And the film is trying to showcase the really deep personal connections held with people through a lot of very intimate cinematography. So as I said, I really enjoyed this movie despite the fact that it didn't always work for me. For starters, I want to talk about the performances in this film. Everyone in this movie does a remarkable job. I can only imagine how difficult it is as an actor to be given a role where you know there are going to be multiple stages in your life being conveyed, and to have to bring light to a role where you've seen them as a child and like understand the nuances of that, and it just flows seamlessly. I feel like even though there are jumps in time, that the actors do a really great job with the consistency of the character, and there are a lot of truly beautiful emotional moments in this, and these actors just capture those moments brilliantly, and I thought that they all did a really phenomenal job. The cinematography in this film is remarkable. It's honestly some of my favorite cinematography I've seen in quite some time, and the reason for that is the patience of the cinematographer. You'll read a lot of reviews about this movie talking about how the camera is constantly looking at hands throughout the entire film, and hands not only in the connection of like human touch and connection through a hug or a touch on the shoulder, but also hands in the connection with nature and feeling water and touching dirt. And there's a lot of close-ups on that, and the attention to detail from the cinematographer and how they're painted and how light reflects off things. It's just gorgeous to look at. You're completely hypnotized by the cinematography, and the camera plays such an important role in this movie because there is dialogue and there are heavy emotional moments, but because you're in a non-linear narrative and you're jumping place to place to place, the camera has to do a lot of heavy lifting in order to make those emotional moments resonate even more if you're jumped to another place and that's jarring to you as a viewer. And I think that the way Raven Jackson directs this thing and is able to work work with her cinematographer and bring across these really beautiful emotional moments is incredibly impressive. And as I said, this is an experimental film. It's shot in a very different style, and so this isn't going to be everyone's cup of tea because of the fact that it jumps all over the place. And I am a huge fan of experimental filmmaking. I love when directors kind of will abandon the conventions of narrative and do whatever they want in order to convey a powerful message. But I do think the non-linear narrative was a struggle for me at times in this movie, and it's not necessarily because of how jarring it is. I think especially early on, when we're cutting to her adult life and then to her teenage life and back to her young life, there were moments I feel like we're supposed to have a heavier emotional impact and sit with you for long periods of time. But really early on in the movie, because of how much it was jumping around, I had a hard time connecting with some of the scenes emotionally. And I will say, once it hits about the halfway point and you've really kind of settled into the structure of the movie, it's a lot easier for those moments to seep in and really stick with you. There's some moments at the halfway to the tail end point of this movie that really struck a chord with me and that I thought were incredibly beautiful. But there were some moments early on that I just found a harder time connecting with because of how much it was jumping all over the place. But it's hard to be upset about it because you can really tell that for Raven Jackson, this film feels very personal. It feels like something she wanted to convey, and it feels like she had this idea for this style and a way to convey it, and she sticks with it, and the execution of it in the visual presentation is remarkable. And so it's hard to fault her for that because it's not going to work for everyone. There's some people that are going to absolutely hate this style, and I appreciate that she approached this style. I just wish there were some things different earlier on, maybe a little bit more of a gap in the time jumps to where you could have sat with the character for longer in specific moments in her life, compared to the end where there are longer moments where we sit with that character. And I think it's a beautiful message just about, you know, our connection with human beings and the importance of other human beings in our lives, and how we all come together in moments where we need each other. And a lot of the moments in this are really joyful and happy moments, and there are a lot of sad, heartbreaking moments. And I think that it just encapsulates the life experience in a really beautiful way, through pregnancy, through loss, through romance. And being able to convey that much in an hour and a half long movie is a difficult task for any director. And I think in this movie, it's mostly successful. I just think for me and my individual experience, I wish that the first act was a little bit more polished. But I think as far as A24 is concerned, if you're looking for something experimental or very different, this movie is very different than a lot of things that A24 has released recently. And I think it's an experience definitely worth having. So have you seen All Dirt Road's Taste of Salt? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. I really enjoyed this movie a lot. Despite the fact that some of it didn't work for me personally, I still think the performances are great. The cinematography and sound design are exceptional, and it's 100% a film worth supporting. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.